Hi there, I'm Alan Wallach. I want to introduce you to my book, Solomon's Dozen. It's about Solomon Nassau, an old guy who decides not to go out with a whimper but with a bang. In fact, many bangs. After he loses his wife and is in a deep depression, he reluctantly goes to the opera with a friend and sees Don Giovanni, Mozart's homage to the ultimate womanizer. Mozart himself was no slouch in his day, but I digress. Solomon hears Leporello, the Don's servant, sing the famous catalog aria in which he describes to one of the Don's potential conquests the entire list of his conquests all over the world. It gives him the idea to do the same, and he snaps out of his slump and sets about to become a roue in his own right and build his own catalog. Solomon's Dozen is a selection of 12 salacious escapades from the fictitious Solomon's catalog. I'm not going to read any of the raunchy descriptions from the book. You'll have to buy it for that. But I will read Solomon's Manifesto so you get the idea. But first, as an extra, let me read you the words in English to a part of the catalog aria from Don Giovanni. Here it is. My dear lady, this is a catalog of the beauties my master has made love to, a list which I have compiled. Observe, read along with me. In Italy, 640. In Germany, 231. 100 in France, in Turkey 91, but in Spain, there are already 1,003. Here's now Solomon's Manifesto. As I was approaching my 82nd birthday, I looked back on the last 10 years with pleasure, satisfaction, and no regrets. It all began on my 72nd birthday. I had been married a long time, but when I lost my wife, my partner, and my love, and some time had passed, I wanted more out of the rest of my life than waiting to die. I had memories of my bachelor days, and I began to resent the fact that they were only memories. I was always a little wild when I was younger, but up until Barbara died, I had been a sane and quiet citizen, retired and happily married. I knew I couldn't bring my wife back, but the day after seeing a great performance of Don Giovanni at the Metropolitan Opera, not to be confused with the Metropolitan Museum, I decided that I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life whimpering and taking life for granted up to my death. I wanted to live every day. I wanted to bring back a little of my past, to build my own catalog. With no manservant like Leporello keeping score, I had to do it myself. But having been blessed with my mother's longevity genes, good health, and my father's sexual appetite, I set about it with determination and focus. I considered all avenues. There were the Have an Affair websites, the bar scene, school courses, museums, concerts, fundraising events, volunteer jobs. Nothing was off limits. No age limit, no class distinction, blondes, brunettes, fat, thin, all in true Don Giovanni fashion. But as reality would have it, those sources were useful merely to find the women to be seduced. But these seductions were not conquests at all. They were just escapades with willing and even aggressive women that I met. And while I had every intention of being a true Giovanni, things didn't exactly turn out that way. Sure, I built my catalog and I had a rip-roaring blast, but not without some basic moral qualms. Not too many, I should add. For the other whimpering, graying men, I agreed to tell my story not to brag or be a role model, but rather to demonstrate that anything is possible for septuagenarians or octogenarians even sex. And when it becomes necessary, with the help of the magic blue pill, we are not dead yet and shouldn't be treated that way. Age discrimination is rampant. I have experienced it firsthand, and I hope this saga will dispel the misconceptions about age. I recently read about a study which suggests that age is in your head. I believe it, and my exploits help support that. At my age, nothing should surprise me, but the one thing that did during these last 10 years was that, contrary to an assumption I made, all kinds of women were attracted to me, even very young ones. I did not have to restrict myself to those that were age appropriate. First, I'm not a bad-looking guy. I keep myself fit, but not, as they say, ripped. I work out, I play sports, but I am not a muscle man. I am probably about 10 pounds overweight, which I had difficulty losing. Moreover, I have to admit that I am not particularly well endowed, if you know what I mean. What happened was, in some measure, very different than when I was a wild bachelor. I am much older now, and even though I intended to just sow more wild oats, it turned out to be very different. There is no question that life colors how we see things, and it also colors how we react to people. In the case of my Don Giovanni experiment, I realized, hard as I tried, I could not be a reckless, egocentric roue. It was just not my nature to be totally inconsiderate of the women I had liaisons with. And I certainly could not kill a disapproving father like the Don did. In some cases, the father or even the grandfather in me came out. Very often I was overcome with a kind of morality or fatherly affection toward my conquests, something that would never happen to a true Lothario. So the following pages will relate to you a dozen escapades from my catalog. They have been selected by Alan Wallach, the chronicler, who has become a friend over these last several months of weekly meetings. I have enjoyed talking about my so-called exploits. The order is not chronological and has been arranged by Alan for readability. Without meaning to, he has become my own personal Homer, a writer of my Solomoniad. But even in this modified order, you will still get the idea that what I originally wanted to be a catalog of purely salacious conquests turned out to be really much more. I have intentionally not left out any of the erotic and sexually explicit details when I told these stories to Alan, and he has elected to leave them in with very little editing. That was the fun part. He enjoyed hearing the erotic details and felt that his readers would too, particularly since some of them were very amusing. My approach to sex was always pretty conventional, and still is. No really kinky stuff. I am willing to explore, but to paraphrase Woody Allen, it's hard to get in and out of advanced positions of intercourse without laughing. And although I am reasonably fit at my age, they would not be laughable. There are some kinky positions that could leave me crippled. Signed, Solomon Nassau. If you go to the links below to buy your copy, either digitally, download them, or in paperback, I warn you that none of the erotic details are left out. Now, enjoy.